So this unboxing is 3 picture books, and they are all by Amy Ludwig VanDerwater. And I had met her years ago at a Kidlit Con in Minnesota. I think it was Minneapolis, St. Paul. And she was, not surprisingly, on a poetry panel. And I was never like that knowledgeable about poetry, so I went to that panel to learn, and they were all so nice because they were hosting this thing that bloggers did called Poetry Friday, where you could write a poem and post it, and then everyone would come and give you like a nice comment on your blog. And I was never I was too intimidated to write my own poetry and post on it, but they were so welcoming and saying like, oh, anyone can do it. And and I remember in the talk that she said one of her favorite word pairs that rhymed was glove and dove. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, people think about word pair, like rhyming word pairings. And now that I also write rhyming picture books, I can appreciate like a good rhyming pair that's something that's, you know what I mean? Like, not like everyone's used a million times. And glove and dove, I mean, that is a really nice rhyming pair. And so she's written a lot of really beautiful picture books. There's always a poetry component to it. I believe she teaches poetry. So let's take a look. Read are poems by Amy Ludwig VanDerwater, illustrated by Ryan O'Rourke. And it's really just, an anthem to read anything, and how anything that you read is, like, it counts, Cereal boxes, maps, comics, books. I would add graphic novels. Anything that you read is, it counts as reading. And so here she has a number of poems all about, just the joy of words and reading and learning and stories. So her books are fantastic to use for April Poetry Month or all year. I think poetry, these types of books too, make great bedtime stories because, you can read just a few if you're if you're running late and have to get the kids to bed. Or if you enjoy it, she has a number of books so you can keep reading. And I think this is a great way to introduce kids to poetry so that they associate it with something that's very fun. The second book is If This Bird Had Pockets. Also kind of an intriguing idea, right? Because birds can really only carry things in their beak, or I guess in their claws. And it's illustrated by Emma Verjan. And so this is for Poem in Your Pocket Day. And so in this case, the Poem in Pocket Day is tomorrow. And so I think that's part of April Poetry Month, where you just keep a poem in your pocket. It doesn't have to necessarily be written by you, I believe. And so so these poems are all by her, but she has each poem associated with an animal. So it's as if the animal wrote the poem, so that you could, if you were that animal, put that poem in your pocket if you had a pocket. But then if you're human, you also, if that's your favorite animal, you can also take that poem and keep it in your pocket. And so each animal has a poem, and I think all different kinds of poetry. And they talk about themselves from their perspective. I mean, that's a really fun way to combine, animals and the natural world with poetry. So take a look at some of it's like very bright and engaging illustrations too. Like, I think it would really make kids feel like, oh, look at this, it looks so fun. And the illustrations are so, they look like beautiful paintings. And so as part of Read, she also has Write. And I think here she's also encouraging writing of poems, but maybe other things as well. So it's really to turn the power of writing on so everyone feels empowered that they can be a writer. And so I think these are all just poems to inspire you to write, and how writing is not like this big thing that is like intimidating that you have to, want to be published, but it's just something that's part of everyday life, like a thank you note, or just a little seed inside you that you think about, and that kind of takes on a life of its own and becomes, something you write, something you write in your journal, or like a poem, or, maybe a story that, you think about and it comes out. And here's one. She's all these different styles. So here's a poem where she takes a sentence and then she makes a line for each one. I'm sure, I know it's a certain kind of poetry, but I don't know the name for it. And I think this is great because it looks super fun, but it also gives you a sense of, poetry doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to sound like Shakespeare. It can be anything, So thank you to Amy for these books. Thank you for watching, and I hope it inspires everyone to go out there and read and write and enjoy poetry as something that's just, nothing you have to study, just something that you do for fun, and maybe even keep your favorite poem in your pocket.